this defense. This means that I am not a voting member of this defense committee, but rather I am here to make sure the defense follows the graduate college guidelines. To begin, I will ask everyone to silence their cell phone and other devices. If you are not talking at the moment, I think it would be good to have the mic mute so we don't have any interferences and we can clearly hear whomever is speaking at the time. There are several parts to the defense. First, a presentation by the candidate, which will be about 20 minutes. Is that about right?
No.
45. I'm sorry, 45 minutes. And at the end of the presentation, there will be time for members of the audience to ask questions. When the questions are done, I will ask the audience to leave the Zoom room so the defense committee can have a private session with the candidate. When that is done, I will ask the candidate to leave so the committee can discuss the defense. With that as an introduction, I would like to introduce Dr. Elisa Barney, who is the chair of this committee, and she will introduce the candidate and the rest of the committee.
Thank you, Lita. I'm very proud to be able to introduce the candidate, Nishatul Majid. He started 4 years ago, and he approached me saying he wanted to do work on character recognition. And being as most people who write to me say, "Dear sir, I want to work in something I've never worked on," I at least read his email twice. And then we interviewed him and decided to admit him. And thanks to the generosity of Boise State being willing to fund his work for 4 years, he was able to be a doctoral student for 4 years, progressing through the ranks, doing a wonderful job being a TA for digital systems. And now he is in a position where he's ready to defend. I want to thank his committee members, Dr. Nada Rafla from Electrical Engineering, Dr. Jennifer Smith from Electrical Engineering, and his external examiner, Dr. Laurence Lick-Foreman from Paris. And with that, I think we'll let Nishat start. And I will mute myself.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining my defense presentation. So this is the title of, can everyone hear me, Dr. Barney Smith? Okay, so let me start my pointer. Okay, so this is my dissertation title, Design of an Offline Handwriting Recognition System, which is tested on Bangla and Korean script. So I am from Bangladesh. Bangla is my first language, and to work with Bangla handwriting recognition has been a dream for me for a long time, I think since high school maybe. So the chance of being here at Boise State and meeting Dr. Barney Smith was a dream come true. So this is a big presentation. I'd like to speed up through many of the slides. So let's begin. So here are the outline of the topics I'm about to cover. I will briefly cover an overview of offline handwriting recognition. Then I will talk about the key contributions of this research. And then I will tell about the experiments I did and the results I have and their analysis. Lastly, I will conclude with the significance of the contribution I tried out of this PhD program and my future plans with this research. So, an overview. So basically, handwriting recognition is machine's ability to recognize people's handwriting, handwritten text. So able to recognize the context or some meaningful form. Usually there are two kinds of handwriting recognition. The top one here shows the online handwriting recognition. It is done when you are using a tablet or an iPad or a digital form of input, and computer recognizes what you are writing. This is considered to be much easier portion of this research field, doing online recognition. The other one which I am interested in, that is offline recognition, where you basically have an image of handwritten image. People wrote something on a paper, you took an image, and now you want a software to recognize the content of it. This is considered to be very, very tough. So why is this very tough? Basically, you can see from the top picture, this is a picture from an autonomous vehicle, how an autonomous vehicle sees the world. It can recognize like 1,000 different kinds of objects of different colors and shapes. It apparently seems very tough, but still we can do this. But handwriting recognition, it's still much complicated than the other thing. And it apparently maybe looks much more simpler, but if you think carefully, handwriting is nothing but a play of bright and dark pixels. Different kind of things like color, shape, perspective doesn't convey any particular information. Things can be vividly different. People write the same thing in many different ways, and things are connected, messy, and noises affect too much on handwritten documents. So this is why handwriting recognition is still a very complicated thing. And why offline recognition is important? This is basically because of numerous reasons, but mostly they come down to one fundamental factor of task automation. So we can do task automation of in many sectors using a working, reliable offline recognition process, such as for postal address verification, form processing, bank check processing, and many things. This is also useful in extracting contents from board, from a video lecture, which is very popular as online education is being really a thing these days. And finding important keywords from documents, handwritten documents. Maybe you have a pile of scanned documents, you just want to filter out some of the pages which talks about a particular topic. This is called keyword spotting. It helps us preserve and utilize and understand more about the history of documents, which is very, very important and also very, very tricky. Many other things like forensic examination, demographic analysis. I was really surprised to learn that from handwriting, you can assess a person's gender, age group, profession, and many other information just from a handwritten content. So there are many useful cases. Traditional approaches of handwriting recognition, there are many kinds of approaches, but I'd like to explain the major two branches with this word. This is a Bangla word, by the way. Here is a Bengali month. So one approach is called segmentation free recognition, where basically you have a palette of words, a list of words, and of which you try to find which of the test word matches the more, at the most match. And you then give the verdict, like this word is this thing. The segmentation free recognition is really preferable these days, but there is a problem that you are always dependent on, in most cases, you are dependent on a restricted vocabulary. The other way is to take the word and segment the characters from the word, like dissect all of the individual characters and try to recognize the individual characters, and then combine these whole together to obtain a segmentation-based approach. The fundamental problem with this approach is, with this step, segmentation of characters from words, this is never clean. There is no clean-cut algorithm for any script, and if the script is like connected, it's really tough. Anyway, the current status of offline recognition, this is still considered an unsolved problem. There are many solutions, but all of them are partial solutions. Like we can do isolated character recognition, or word spotting, or like writer verification, signature verification, this kind of small stuffs. But unconstrained handwriting recognition is still considered a vividly unsolved problem. Especially, I was primarily working on Bangla, which is an Abugida script. I will talk about that later a little bit more. There is nothing have been reported which can reliably do an offline recognition of those scripts. But recently, these have been gaining a lot of attentions. Many industries, like smartphone industries, to even automotive industries, like companies like Volkswagen, Audi, they are also expressing their interest in this field. But all the available solutions that we have today still either lacks the speed or the accuracy that is required for a professional standpoint or for a scientific standpoint. So now I'll move on to the key contributions of this research. So basically what I did is I designed an offline handwriting recognition using a method, using an approach which I call and will be calling character spotting. So this is the name I will be going with to explain my method. This method is a script independent approach, so it can be applied to many scripts. It doesn't depend on on a fixed set of vocabulary like the other segmentation free approaches. And I tested and thoroughly tested it for Bangla and demonstrated the approach with Korean with just a little bit, just to show like this can be script independent. The second contribution, it's one of the most important contribution. I think it's called autonomous tagging. It is a way of achieving, it's a way of processing handwritten data set really faster than what it is used to be, like reducing manual labor and do some ground truth labeling in an automated fashion. I will talk about this at a greater length at the section. So this is the second thing. The third thing is I developed a data set for Bangla. This is called the Boise State Bangla Handwriting data set. It is a publicly available, it's a free data set. And so it's definitely one of the richest data set for Bangla or any Abugida scripts, any Indic scripts. And I did many other experiments to support these frameworks of character spotting and autonomous tagging. And few of the key experiments where I compared recognition performance if the acquisition source is different, but the data is same. So scanned versus cell phone camera acquired images, how they impact the recognition performance. And I measured the effect of recognition accuracy when the data tagging or annotation is inaccurate, how much inaccurate it can get to break a recognition system. I also developed an isolated basic character recognizer for Bangla to benchmark the data set, the Boise State data set. And some of the tools like character tagging, tag transfer, some of the tools to construct my data set more solidly. So here I will be describing the offline recognition approach with character spotting. So as an overview, this is a segmentation-free approach, but it is vocabulary-free. It doesn't depend on any fixed set of vocabulary. And it can be adaptable to different writing system. And it's very fast and really high performing, at least for my cases in those two scripts, it was really high performing. And the basic idea, to demonstrate the basic idea, I will use the example of the Latin script, as we all know Latin script very well. So the basic idea is very simple. For example, here we see a handwritten word, which is good. And the idea is to look for the characters, like looking for A, and there is no A in this word, looking for B, looking for C, and looking for D, and finally we've got a D. We got a D here. So a D is a character which has been spotted inside a word image. So this is the basic essence of the character spotting approach, but all this seems like these are going sequentially, but it's in actuality, it all happens simultaneously. For all character classes happens simultaneously for a given word. So basically, this is how it looks like. You have a word, using an object detection network, you try to spot all the characters, and you use the relative location of the spotted characters, like for example, G comes before O or D comes after O, you obtain a transcription. That's a basic idea. And how it is done, actually, the object detection network I will be using, which will do the character spotting thing, it has been trained with such images. It has been trained with many word images, which has character level location information inside those images. For example, in this case, we see 5 words, all of them has G marked. So this I will be calling tagging. So G has been tagged with ground truth data. So it is G here. So it learns from many different words, and eventually it gets scaled enough to test find G's on unseen or test words as well. So the key point is basically just not recognizing the whole word like the other segmentation free approaches does, but rather detecting the basic elements, the characters. And I'll show you how it can be applied to any alphabetic script, like any script that has a definite structural alphabet, a limited number of alphabets, it can be applied to those scripts. Okay, so this is the real thing, how I did it for Bangla. And to explain that, I'll have to introduce you a little bit about Bangla. So Bangla is the official language of Bangladesh and many states in India. It's one of the major scripts in the globe. Is the 7th most spoken and 5th most widely used writing systems in the world. So here you can see this. This is Boise State University, phonetically written in Bangla. This is how Bangla looks like. This is my handwriting, by the way. And this is how the Bangla alphabet looks like. We have 11 vowels, 39 consonants, in total of 50 basic characters. And we have 2 funny things. One is vowel diacritics and one is consonant conjuncts. Basically, these 2 creates a lot of trouble when we try to do machine learning on Bangla. I will explain that in the next slide. This is how the Bangla numbers look like. So the complexities of abugida. This is basically true for any abugida scripts. Any scripts originated from this family. Bangla is one of them. So the first one is called diacritic. And I will be using the Latin analogy to explain this. So say here, the G, the character G in Latin looks like this character here in Bangla. These are same. This both has a different structure. The vowel O looks like this. But if we want to write G-O or go, it will be G-O in Latin. But in Bangla, I don't know if you can understand this. This takes a different shape. This is not just this G followed by this O. This is an entirely different shape. Something is wrapping around the Bangla G. So this O, this is the O equivalent, is the character, and this symbol, it's the diacritic form. This happens whenever a vowel needs to be after a consonant, it changes its shape. It becomes a kind of a symbol, a different kind of symbol, which is called diacritic. Also, this can happen in terms of consonants. If there are 2 consonants, for example, in this case, if K and R needed to be written side by side. Oh, what happened? Just a second. Okay. If K and R written to be side by side, in Bangla, K looks like this, R looks like this, but K and R together looks like a totally different shape, doesn't look anything similar to the other 2 classes. So this is a conjunct form. So the consonants can fuse with each other to form a different shape. So while we just have the 50 characters in our alphabet, practically when we want to do machine learning or offline recognition, we need to consider these classes too, these diacritics, the conjuncts too. And that kind of translates more than 2,000 unique appearances of characters or glyphs or this kind of components needs to be recognized. And 2,000 is a very big class. So how I how to deal with a large number of classes. It's very simple, divide and conquer. You have 2000 different classes. You break it down into 2 separate problems, one with say 100, one with say 20. In my case, I developed a network. It's called CNET, short for character network, which only deals with the characters and the conjuncts. And another network, which is DNET, short for diacritic network, which only detects the diacritics. So these two are separate networks and expert in their separate field. So this is the class distribution of CNET and DNET. So the CNET has all the basic and the conjunct and the punctuations, while the DNET has all the diacritics and some of the conjuncts which also behave like diacritics and the basic character too. Okay, so while training, for example, if you can see the orange box here, this contains a character as well as a diacritic. So both the CNET and DNET were trained using the same image, but they were rewarded for detecting different class. So CNET tries to detect the character, which is the triangular shaped thing here. And the DNET tries to detect the diacritic, which is the rest of the part in the left side. And then once they have seen many examples, they're expected to find out or spot those characters or diacritics from unseen words. And here is the overall picture. I have a word, a Bengali word, and I run sequentially the CNET and DNET on it. For CNET detects the 3 characters here available in this word. These are the 3 characters. The center one is a conjunct that deals the conjuncts too. And the DNET then finds the only diacritic here in the middle section. And again, using the relative location information, I obtain a transcription. So that's how it works for Bangla. Later on, I implemented the same thing for Korean. So the Korean is also known as Hangul. It's the official language for Korea. And Korean is a different kind of script. It's not an abugida. It doesn't have anything like vowel diacritic. It has 28 characters in its syllable, but there is a unique property of Korean which we needed to consider. The property is the characters are not written as simple as from left to right, like for example Latin. The characters may appear one on top of other or on the left, on the right. In a 2-dimensional plane, they form a geometric structure. For example, here you can see the word honeybee. If written like Latin, it will look like this. But it is written like this. You can see the first 4 basic characters are written together as a compound unit. This is called a syllable, Korean syllable. By the way, this section says Boise State University phonetically in Korean. Okay, this is the Korean alphabet. And for Korean, I considered the basic 28 classes along with 5 more classes. Some of the classes, there are some of the basic characters of Korean who always appears in pairs in connected form. So in total, there are 33 basic elements that I considered for character spotting and developed a network. This time it is called KNET, short for Korean network. And the KNET, when given a syllable, here is an example of a syllable which contains 4 basic elements, 4 basic characters. By the way, the Korean basic characters are also called jamo. Here, jamo. So this is a syllable which is made out of 4 jamos. So the KNET detects the 4 jamos, and from their relative location, we detect the compound. So that's a basic idea. Same thing, not recognizing the whole syllable, but recognizing the individual building blocks, and then form a transcription out of that. Okay, so moving on from the basic idea, Here I'll talk about the tools, technologies, and strategies I used to develop this. So the core of this network is basically an object detection network where I used a faster RCN architecture. And I also use our autonomous tagging. Let me move forward just a little bit. So faster RCN was the choice for my object detection network. Faster RCN is a variant of RCNN, which is short for convolutional neural network with regions. So RCNN is a network which basically can detect object from an image. As you can see from this example, usually a classification network tells you about the class of the image. Here it is an image of cat. Here, an RCNN network can tell you where the cat is, or the dog is, or the duck is. So faster RCNN, basically a faster variant of RCNN. In some benchmarking tests, it shows that it is like 250 times faster than a standard RCNN network. So it was my choice for building the CNET and DNet. This is the basic layout of a faster RCNN network, which is basically a standard RCNN network with an additional region proposal network. This thing here makes everything faster. And I used VGG16, a very common neural architecture, VGG16, with transfer learning, and use this architecture to build my faster RCNN object detection network. VG16 is basically an architecture developed at University of Oxford. It was originally trained to recognize thousands of classes from a dataset called ImageNet. So I retuned the parameter from VG16 to use it for my handwritten words. This is pretty standard. So this is the structure. This is how the series VGG16 architecture was transferred into Dexter for faster RCN. I'd like to emphasize in this point that the VG16 or the faster RCN, anything here, any modification is not part of my contribution. These are all just standard procedures, and anything can be used instead of faster RCN. Maybe HMM can be used instead of VG16. Any other networks can be used too. So a major part of my focus is on the strategy, but not the networks. These are very well performing and I would say educated choice for my case. So these are the training parameters I used, like all the images were resized to 600 pixel at the smallest dimension. I use HGDM with a momentum of 0.9, and here are the other training parameters. And by the way, all the training parameters and the structure here, all are same for CNET, DNet, and KNet, all of the cases. So this is the common structure used for both the scripts and both the networks. So this here shows the hierarchy of my workflow. As you can see already, the object detection network being at core, I detect the characters or spot the characters or symbols, and then using a series of processing, I compile those detected results to form a transcription, and I use an annotated data set for this, and other techniques like transfer learning and data augmentation. So the green boxes here represents the portion of my framework which is script independent. And the red boxes, such as a data set, has to be script dependent. Okay. And there is a sequence, there is a process of properly compiling a detected results into a transcription. For example, to have a threshold of detection, if a threshold is very low, this can be a false detection. So eliminate that detection. And there are always overlaps. So I'll have to have a strategy to prioritize the overlaps. And there were some script knowledge used for proper Unicode sequencing. Unicode sequencing can be a tricky thing for scripts like Bangla where there are diacritics. So that Unicode has a specific sequence. There can be spell checking done. And some few script knowledge has been used also. These are like basic grammatical noise. such as like a vowel cannot have a vowel diacritic, a vowel cannot form a conjunct. So this kind of script knowledge has been used for compilation. Here is a sample process. It's a very messy diagram, but bear with me here. The figure A here shows a raw detection. The orange boxes shows the CNET detection or the characters, and the blue boxes show the DNET detection or the diacritics. There are 2 diacritics detected and 4 characters detected. Actually 5, yeah, 5. So afterwards, if you can see from the figure B, the red box here, this is a detection which was under the confidence threshold. So this is not a confident detection. So it has been removed here in the image C. And here in case of image C, you can see there is the overlap with the red and the green boxes. So the red box is also a valid character, which is a triangular shaped thing. And the green box, which has the triangular shaped thing and a dot underneath. So in such cases of overlaps, I always have to pick the larger one, the one that encapsulates the smaller partial detection. Some of the partial characters may also be a valid character. So the red box is removed here, and we just have the bigger detection. So these are the sequences of the compilation process. And this is only done for Bangla. For Korean, we didn't do this, but it could have been done. So moving forward, here is the second thing I would like to say. Second important thing which was required for the character spotting method to work, the Boise State Bangla handwriting dataset. When I basically started my PhD program and wanted to do Bangla handwriting recognition, there was no rich enough data set for Bangla, like with enough metadata or enough data even, or SS scripts. So I had to create one. So this is the one I created. And I'll briefly tell you about the construction of this data set. It took a lot of time, and it's one of the richest data set for Bangla. Actually, I think this is the richest data set for Bangla right now. So this data set, the Boise State data set, it has 3 kinds of components. So the first one is a page of isolated components, which contains the basic characters, the vowels, the numbers, some high frequency conjuncts. And you can see a sample here. This is a sample handwriting. 253 voluntary writers contributed for my dataset. So I have 253 of these kind of pages, and these all are digitized using both a cell phone camera like this and a flatbed scanner. So I have the same image digitized in 2 different ways. The second component of this dataset is an SS script. Here is a script. This is a carefully written script which has all the basic characters of Bangla, all vowel diacritics, 32 high frequency conjuncts, and all of the content here, all of the words, all of the sentences and lines. These are common words. These are not archaic words. These are very widely everyday used words. And here is a sample. And I also took a scanned version of this page. And the same set of writers, the same set of 253 writers contributed for this SS script document as well. The third portion of this dataset is a conjunct word document. I'll have to explain this a little bit. So in Bangla, we have this fusion of the consonants to make conjunct. There are more than 400 possible conjunct words, conjunct characters for Bangla, and 400 is a really high number. So what we did is we statistically reduced this number. We've been through a lot of literature, we've been through a lot of documents for Bangla, and picked out 128 most used conjuncts. And in our case, in our experiment, it covered 99.7% of the entire Bangla script. So this is basically 1/3 of the conjuncts, but it kind of covers almost the entire script. And we use conjuncts and force them to be a word. And this is a small number of words you can see here. here is a sample of handwritten thing. So these are all words. These words are not common daily life used words because some of these contents are really, really rare. I collected 70 writers' contributions. So I have 70 pages like this of this content. And these are only digitized using a flatbed scanner. These are the three kind of contents. And the data acquisition process was very simple. It was unconstrained. I just gave the writer the content, and writer chose their own paper and pen. And these images are collected, cropped, and a little bit of skew corrected, but no color alteration or no filtering was done. Contributions were anonymous, but I saved some demographic information. And here is a tough bird. So this is what I needed to do to obtain the character spotting framework. All of the content, the isolated page, the essay script, and the content Word document, all of them are ground truth tagged. And by ground truth tagged, I mean all of the components like characters or lines or words are the information or the location of those things are stored in a text file. So it shows the location of this character in this document in form of a enclosing rectangle. So this was done manually for every element of this data set, for scanned and for camera accurate version, all of them. So the demographic distribution of this data set, this is the distribution. I don't have too many left-handed person. This is the age group, male, female distribution. This were random. I didn't pick any set of demographic distribution. I didn't have the luxury to, but it's kind of nice. The other public data sets which are available for Bangla, these are the most popular ones: CMatter, ISI, Bangla Lekha, New ISI, and here is mine. So this table will tell you about numbers, but what I tell you is none of them has this kind of character, word, or line level ground truth tagging for that data. And these are different in structures. Some has individual words, some have scripts, some have some basic form of transcription, some doesn't have. So this is the previous case, and this is here the Boise State dataset in compared with the other datasets. Okay. So I also prepared an isolated character recognizer just to benchmark the Boise State dataset with these other datasets, like if they're compatible, if there is something wrong with my dataset, to just see that. I used a traditional machine learning approach, a feature extracted from, let me go to the next slide. A feature extracted from journal features, stroke pattern features, user features from the pre-processed image, and I used an SVM classifier with a cubic kernel and obtained a result. I ran this identical test for all the other datasets, using them as training sets and using my dataset as testing sets. Here are the results, like all of them. And this is the highest result I got, which is 96.80 using the Bangla Lekha dataset, which is kind of the largest dataset for Bangla for isolated characters only. And the main point here, it shows like all the numbers are kind of similar. So basically all of them can be interchangeably used. So my dataset, Boise State dataset can be used seamlessly with any other of these datasets, anyone if required to. So also to be noted, like the value I obtained for basic character recognition, 96.80, it is kind of the highest ever reported for Bangla. The last highest one was 95.10 by Alif and his group. Okay. And so these are basically the key points for this research, to show that the dataset can be seamlessly used with others. I obtained the highest recognition accuracy, and isolated character recognition is also a very important subsection of offline recognition. It can also facilitate many kind of task automations like postal headers, addresses. These have isolated characters or numbers. And about this dataset, the dataset is amazing. It took a lot of work for me to get this, and it allowed me to implement the character spotting algorithm finally It covers almost the entire Bangla script in a very efficient fashion, and it's suitable for many kinds of research like segmentation based or free or word spotting or n-gram approaches. And this is enough big to be used in data hungry algorithms like deep learning based algorithms. So moving on, I used 3 other data sets also just to test my character spotting approach, so that it just not works for my data set. It can also work for any other public data sets. So it's a good way of testing a system's reliability or ruggedness. So I use CMetaDB 1.1.1, which is a data set developed in Kolkata, India. This has SS scripts, 100 pages of them. Another dataset I use is called Indic Word document, Indic Word dataset, which has not a script, but a lot of words, a lot of word images. Over 17,000 handwritten word samples from 60 different writers. And the last one I used is a little bit challenging. I used the RAID 2019. It is not a handwritten dataset, rather it's a machine printed and historical document. It's an Indian printed document collection for as an old collection of document. So it has been used for IGDAR competition. IGDAR is a conference in 2019 and also I think in 2017 too. So I wanted to test my approach with machine printed and historical documents too, just to see like what happens. And for Korean, I use only one single data set. This is called the PE92. This is one of the most used data sets for Korean offline recognition research. This has 2,350 syllable classes for Korean. Here are a few samples of them. This is a pretty straightforward data set. So these are the experiments I done. First experiment will be the character spotting performance for Bangla. So when I used my dataset only, the Boise State dataset, I used the SS scripts and the conjunct word documents in a 90-10% split between testing and training and testing. And also I did another distribution, 80-20 distribution, the same fashion between essay and conjunct word documents, but this was used to do a 5-fold cross validation. And here are the results. I'd like you to focus here. The best character recognition accuracy, which is just as simple as it sounds, character recognition accuracy I got is 94.80%, which is really high, not for only Bangla. It's just high for any kind of handwritten, unconstrained handwritten recognition report. And I got a word recognition accuracy, WRA, of 87.74%. And keep in mind that I didn't use any kind of post-processing, not even a spell checking for this experiment at least. No kind of natural language processing or any algorithm. So these are just raw detection results compiled into words. And for the 5-fold cross-validation, the numbers are pretty similar, just a little bit lower, I guess. Yeah. And the performance with the 3 external data sets, I didn't use the whole of these data sets. I just used like the first 25 pages for the CMetaDB, the test set of Indic Word data set, and first 11 pages of the RAID 2019. And these are the results. So again, you can focus on the CRA and WRA, the character recognition accuracy and word recognition accuracy. For CMetaDB, this is the first reported recognition, which is 92.36%. For Indic Word dataset, you can see the number. Especially, I was really surprised to see the result, and in fact, this is the best result I got out of these external datasets with the RAID 2019. If you can remember, this is the historical document, historical Bangla document. My networks haven't seen any machine printed font during training, but still it gives an incredible number. And all the other reports for these data sets were below 80%, although it's in terms of WRA, I got 83.62% of word recognition accuracy. So moving on, the other experiment, it is an experiment where I tried to see how the recognition performance varies when the acquisition process is different. Like the same data, but when scanned and when camera acquired, what's the difference in numbers for performance. So I did this exact experiment with my character spotting approach, and I ran 4 experiments, training and testing both using scan and camera. So there are 4 possible combinations, and as expected, I got the best result when using training on scan and testing on scan. So the best possible environment resulted into the best possible result, thus character recognition accuracy of 86.62%. And also the worst result came from training on camera and testing on scan, which is 82%. But something very interesting came from this experiment. You can see from the orange boxes here. The first one is while trained on camera and test on camera, it gave me 84.75%. But this third one here, it is trained on scan but test on camera. So the training and testing environment were different. So training with a higher quality image, but testing with a very low quality image, but it gave me a higher result. So somehow it indicated that if you can train with higher quality images, then it is better, at least for this experiment. And I used the basic isolated character recognition framework too with this experiment, and the same sort of result, the same pattern repeated. Like the scan environment gave me the best result. The camera training and scan testing gave me the worst result. And again, using the training set with scanned images gave me a better results than camera images, while both are tested using camera images. So for this experiment, I just used isolated digits, not the whole character set, because I just wanted to test the performance comparison, not just get some numbers. So anyway, this is the key finding. The key finding is, first one is very expected, where the higher quality data translates into better recognition. But the second one was really unexpected. It doesn't matter if you use lower quality data for application area, it's always better to use higher quality data for training if possible. So this is kind of one of the things we find out from both of these experiments, which actually contradicts many other researchers, many other old practices like degradation models. And my experiment was, in fact, a short scale experiment. This statement may not be holding for all of other cases, but I think the pattern likely reappear in many other cases too. So, and then the third one, the autonomous tagging for Bangla and Korean. So the autonomous data tagging is, the idea is very simple. As I told you, for the Boise state data set, I had to do this thing called tagging, manually drawing boxes around the characters and saving the location information in a text file. And this is how I train my character network and diacritic network and form that character spotting approach. So this took a really long time, and it is not a process. It's not a fun process. This process is very error prone and very tiring. So for the autonomous data tagging, the basic idea is if I can skip this process, I mean, if I can automate this process somehow using an algorithm. So first I needed to ask the question, like, how much accurate these boxes need to be for a proper recognition result? How much accurate this needs to be? So I did an experiment for just that. Here you can see from the image, the green box encapsulates a character, which is the correct, accurate, manually labeled box for this character. And then I intentionally increase the box width by 10%, 20%, 30%, and 40%, as shown by the other boxes. Just increase the volume and also decrease the volume by minus 10%. Decreasing more than that, beyond that, doesn't make any sense because it cuts off the important section of the character. So the results were really surprising. This is a thorough result, but I'd like you to pay attention to the character recognition accuracy. As you can see, the precise label gave me a 93.61%, where increased by 40%, the highest amount of increase inaccuracy I introduced, just gave me a little more than 1 decimal point less character recognition accuracy. So it seems like my approach, the character spotting approach, is really robust in terms of tagging accuracy. The bounding boxes, if they're a little bit bigger or a lot bigger, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference for to have a decent performance. Here you can see the graph by the blue line. The best point is still at 0%, but even at 40%, it's pretty okay. So I use this thing, I use the result to have this autonomous tagging framework. So the idea is when I have an image, I will not draw the manual boxes for each of the characters. Rather, I will somehow estimate where the character locations are. And on those estimated locations, I will make the bounding boxes so much bigger that it will somehow most likely encapsulate the character for every handwriting or most of the handwriting. And as I already know, like if I enlarge the bounding box, it doesn't impact the recognition that much. So it is doable. So for Bangla, I used a machine printed counter form of the same text, since I have the ground truth transcription. So I have this same word written using machine printed font, and use the width information of those fonts. And from those width proportions, I implemented the splitting of the characters here in the automated tagging process. And as you can see, the boxes are overlapping since I expanded the boxes just to make sure a different person, if written differently, still there's a high probability that the first character will be inside this box as dictated, as estimated from the machine print font. So how it is used, basically, I expanded the initial estimation by 20%, 30%, and 40%, and used all of these three images. So in a sense, these are a form of data augmentation, all of these three images. And then that was used for training, and then it was tested on test words. This is the result. Again, for the character recognition accuracy, from the manual tagging, the recognition accuracy was 93.61%. Using the autonomous method, it went down a little more than 2%, roughly about 3%. And the word recognition accuracy went down by 6%. But the manual tagging, for me, took roughly around 600 hours. And it was a thing of really not enjoyable. It's a fatiguing process. And this is basically why most datasets doesn't have this level of ground truth metadata. And as it turns out, with my character spotting approach, I can skip this. Sure, I lose 2 decimal points, but with autonomous tagging, it took just only less than an hour, definitely less than an hour, maybe half an hour it took. And it can easily be applied for more and more and more data. And more data always increases the performance. And this autonomous tagging is also script independent. And I applied this for Korean too. For Korean, I didn't use the machine printed fonts like I used for Bangla. I just used the properties of the Korean scripts. Since I told you earlier, the Korean scripts, the JAMOs, the isolated characters, appear in fixed geometric structures. So there can be these possible edge geometric structures. And for each of them, I splitted the region equally. Like for this example, A, there are 2 characters side by side. So I draw a boundary of 50% left and 50% right, and then expanded the boundary. And in this way, for Korean, I obtain a character recognition accuracy or JAMO recognition accuracy of 91.22%, a word recognition accuracy of 84.66%. I also did a manual tagging, and this time the manual tagging, the recognition accuracy is much lower. And this is basically because of a reason that I didn't manually tag a lot of data. So the manual tag was done for 10 samples per class, where the autonomous tagging was done 80 samples per class. Manual tagging is a laborious process. So I just did a small amount of data to see the comparative difference. And here it is, here it goes. Like, this is a better approach if you want to skip a lot of manual labor. And this is the main point of handwriting recognition anyway. So the significance of this autonomous tagging is huge. It eliminates the hardest part of preparing a data set. And since this can be used with character spotting approach, the combination of these two approach can lead a massive development for handwriting recognition for any script. So you can just collect handwritten samples for a script and then transcribe them, just type them, and that's all you need to do for preparing a data set. And it's ready to go to be used with autonomous tagging and character spotting. So as a conclusion, I'd like to take a moment for the key contributions one more time. So the approach I'm presenting here, the character spotting approach, it is a new approach. It's it kind of the idea kind of is analogous to the word spotting approach, but it's not. It's a segmentation-free approach, and as shown, it's a vocabulary-independent approach. It doesn't depend on a restricted vocabulary. It works with things like diacritics, conjuncts, so it takes account for the complexities that can arise from many kinds of scripts, and it's a multi-script approach. And the autonomous tagging that I described and the process, I demonstrated both of this process for Bangla and Korean. I tested for Bangla with internal and external dataset, developed the Boise State Bangla handwriting dataset, and compared the effect of different kind of acquisition methods and obtained a very interesting result out of that. And the summary of the impact is just the same thing. The combination of the character spotting and autonomous tagging, I just can't wait to apply this to many other scripts. So, and I think this can lead to a very fast, effective development of a reliable offline recognition approach for any alphabetic script. This is also the first reported unconstrained recognition for Bangla, my script, or any other Indic script. This is the first unconstrained recognition report. All other approaches were vocabulary dependent. They kind of like did for 60 names of districts, and they can do the recognition if the test word is one of those districts. And I also demonstrated how training with higher quality images might be better for every cases, even the application field uses low quality data. So prior to this research, only a handful of approaches were there, which reported that some approaches which can be applied for some other scripts, like a few other similar scripts, not like any alphabetic script. So none reported with which are script independent. No work reported for unconstrained recognition for any script. And prior to this, there was no dependable lexicon-free offline recognition for Bangla, and no approach also was present which can deal with the complexities of like diacritics and conjuncts. No other data set were available which encapsulates almost the entire Bangla script in a small fashion so that it can be used for a complete offline handwriting recognition for Bangla. So these are the situations before this research. Future expansion, it's, I'd like to brief through that. There are options to fine-tune the network parameters. There are options to choose different spotting technologies. In fact, there will be new spotting technologies. There will be there are YOLO, there are HMM-based techniques which I can use and improve the performance. So there is a possible expansion that can happen, and seriously, post-processing is a very common way to improve the results. Post-processing like grammar correction by, or the use of NLP or spell checking, this can seriously improve the results. And pre-processing, some of the pre-processing like image compression, it can improve a lot of training time. So one of my personal ambition is to expand my framework for other scripts, to just collect the data set which has annotations and just the whole framework is ready to be implemented, and to see like how well this works for other scripts as well. So this is a map showing the similar script which are similar to Bangla. The reds are very similar, greens are small, yellows a little bit, and blues are kinda. So these all are, I think, readily applicable to the approach I demonstrated for Bangla. All of the scripts can be immediately applied. Most of the scripts have some sort of data sets, but which are not ground truth tagged from the character level, which I don't require with the autonomous tagging process. So all of this works has been presented to the conferences. I attended ICTAR and ICFHR. Um, these are the list of the publications I have. The last one, the fourth one, is submitted to ICFHR 2020. It's under review right now. And I'd like to thank Dr. Barney Smith a lot for all of her support and being with me for every portion of my research. I'd also like to thank Mr. Stephen Kim, who is an undergraduate student of computer science department in Boise State University, who is the Korean expert, and using his help, we could build the recognition framework for the Korean. Also like to thank the R2 compute clusters given by the Boise State University. All of this experiment cannot be done using my MacBook. It's just not simply possible. So they gave me the computational power. Thank you for that. And all of my friends, some of my friends are also present in this presentation right now. I'd like to thank especially to you who contributed to my datasets. And with that, I'd like to conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Nishat. We can have a virtual hand clapping. So if there's a little symbol, you can all clap and
okay, thank you.
Tell him that you're all happy that he did his work. We will now open it up to questions from the general people here. We'll save the committee for afterward. But if we've got questions, raise your hand from the general audience. And if I find you. Any questions from the general audience? Curtis.
So I just had a very simple question, which was all this in Python? And did you use like Keras, or which packages did you do all this in?
Okay, no, I didn't use Python actually. I used a bit of the frameworks using Python, but most of the work was done in MATLAB. Did you hear me say? Can you hear me, Dr. Kenley? So okay. all of this was done actually in MATLAB.
Yeah, I heard. I accidentally raised the hand again, but yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Melanie, you have a question?
I don't really have a question, but I did want to, I just want to say congratulations to Nishat, but I am a PhD student in public policy and administration, but I work with indigenous communities in Idaho and South Dakota. And the next language preservation is such a hot topic right now in terms of the UN declaring international mother language and the preservation of indigenous languages around the world. And Nishat and I share very similar characteristics in the way that languages have been suppressed by government policies. And so I am really anxious and look forward to seeing his work being applied to other scripts, and particularly indigenous communities that have not had access to their language being preserved, particularly within a data set. So thank you.
Thank you very much. That was really nice. Thank you, Melanie.
Dr. Welch?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. Going back to what Dr. Cantley was asking, what was the execution times using MATLAB a significant concern? Meaning, was there a need to go to some form of a compiled language to accelerate the process?
The training time was actually slower. Yeah, but the point is, I didn't actually pay too much attention on that section to make it a much more efficient training, because it was not too bad and the end result was really great. And I was really concentrating on building the framework for this kind of scripts. So like there has been a lot of research about the deep neural network structure. Like I could use a different structure. I could use some preprocessed image. I could use a different framework using Python to speed up the training, but I don't think they will impact that much in terms of the recognition performance or the speed of the end result. Like when a network has been trained, the speed of detection from an image that will not impact too much. So actually, no, I didn't pay too much attention on those sections.
So
Nisha, can
as
you
long
say
as I was going to just follow up, as long as the execution times were minutes or hours, then I completely agree. There's no need to accelerate.
Nisha,
Mm-hmm.
can you say something about how long it takes
Mm-hmm.
to do the recognition, to do the spotting?
Oh, yeah. So for Bangla, when I ran with the entire data set that includes the 253 times 272, this amount of all including hundreds of words, it took about 7 days to finish. So it was slow.
That's for the training. How about the recognition?
Oh, the recognition was almost real time. The recognition of words was almost real time. Is that what you asked, Ruby?
Yeah. So training takes a long time, but recognition is fast.
Yes. Yeah. And during the end phase of my research, I figured out a way to speed up the training. I just figured out if I compress the images in some form, it doesn't affect the recognition performance that much, but it's really drastically speeds up the training time. But I didn't do enough amount of research or conclusive research about that.
Other questions from the general audience? Lita?
Yeah, my question is, why did you choose these two scripts, like Bangla and Korean, for your
Korean.
study?
Okay. That's a fantastic question. So basically, I am from Bangladesh, so Bangla is my language, and working with Bangla handwriting recognition was a long-term dream for me, actually. So this was what I primarily intended to do. At a point when me and Dr. Barney Smith figured out that this approach is quite generic and surely can be applied to other scripts too, then we were actually looking for resources, like any people who will contribute, be the language expert, help us with some data sets, and then help us with some strategies to understand about that script. And the person we found was Kim. So this is why we picked Korean. And also another reason is Korean is entirely different than Bangla. So we thought it's a very good demonstration, like for two totally different kind of script, the same approach, how this can work. And this kind of states boldly the fact that this can be applied to other different kind of scripts as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Can we have another virtual round of applause for Nisha, and then I'll ask everybody to leave? Is that with the committee?
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.